the same way that there are people there on the ground helping the babies that are in the river, there need to be people also asking the questions, who
the fuck
is
putting
these
babies in the river?
In the goddamn river? Yeah, like where are they coming from? Literally. I don't know if you know, but I don't love using the word artist. Once I felt that, honestly, it was almost like a drug where I'm like, I've never had this before, and this is actually crazy to experience, and I just wanted to keep pursuing it and following down that path. So
welcome back, everyone, to the I Feel You podcast. On this episode, we have a very special guest. Anthony Alvarez is a filmmaker and also the co-founder / CEO of Project Feel. Originally on a healthcare path, he discovered the power of storytelling to make a meaningful impact in the world. Driven by his belief that creativity can unite communities and transcend boundaries, he pivoted towards the arts. As Anthony began collaborating with his Project Feel team members, he dedicated himself to creating works of art and communal experiences that foster a sense of connectedness and understanding. From his surreal fantasy In Full Bloom to his most recent documentary In Your Element, all of Anthony's films explore the profound potential of community. Through his empathetic art and leadership, Anthony is passionate about building bridges and helping people feel a little less alone in the world. On this episode, we talk about how everyone is naturally creative. We talk about building PF to address upstream problems. And we also talk about how to be a supportive human being. So if you enjoy this content, if you enjoy what we're doing here and what we're speaking on, I would really appreciate it if you guys check if you're subscribed. Some people are, some people aren't. And we would really, really appreciate that. It helps a lot if you're on YouTube specifically. If you're listening on any streaming platforms, thank you for spending the time within your day to listen to this audio. And let us know how you feel about everything that you're seeing and what you're listening to. We would love to know how you guys feel. So yeah, thanks for watching again and enjoy the episode. To start off the show, what's your opinion on the 2013 Miami Heat?
2013 Miami Heat?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this was when I was like bandwagoning the Heat because that's when LeBron James was on it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask David, he'll be like, this guy was the most piece of shit bandwagoner fan for this band. Yeah. He hates LeBron James. But
does he?
He hates LeBron James. Okay, I won't say he wouldn't say that. He'd be like, I think he's overhyped or whatever. And I'm like, you're a hater, bro. But how did I feel about that team? I loved watching them win. And I hated Ray Allen because he was on the Celtics, and then when he came there, he became one of my favorite players. So that goes to show where my loyalty lies, or my lack thereof. But
yeah, true.
Yeah. But I was a fan.
I'm glad you actually answered that question.
Yeah,
that was a hard ball right there. That was decided to throw you off your game.
10 years ago. Wow, I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's actually I didn't realize either. Wow. It's 10 years. Crazy. I mean, I was in high school. Yeah, I was in high school. The math wasn't. Yeah, I was in high school. That was crazy. It feels like it was like middle school though. That's how long ago.
I feel that. Yeah, I would. Yeah, high school.
You were in high school?
I was in high school. Yeah, I must have been in high school.
Didn't you graduate like 2013 or something?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I graduated 2013. Yeah. I forget about that, bro.
I don't know that, but you didn't.
Yeah, seriously, how did you know that?
Math, bro. Math. I learned that in school. Amongst other things.
That Florida education did you well.
Dude, it did me so good, man. I'm so well learned. It's wild. I'm pretty sure that's actually how you say it. Isn't it learned or some shit?
If it is, I've been sounding very dumb this whole time. So.
Hey. So, welcome, Anthony Alvarez.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Eddie Wise.
Yeah, surprise guest. We had to make a bit of a pivot, and thankfully we have Anthony here, who oftentimes helps us with the podcast. Comes through and sets stuff up, and used to do it all alone. Now I don't, thankfully.
You got some support.
Thanks to Project Feel, everybody there. Yeah, man, that was fun. But yeah, no,
you're a workhorse. I'll say that. Like you.
I listen. In some ways, I am, but yeah, we won't talk about that. I appreciate your help in all the ways that you do help. It's very appreciated. But because he helps pretty often, and we were like, you're gonna come through anyway. And we're like, might as well. We had a small cancellation, and then it was like it worked out kind of well. So we're happy to have you on.
I was geeking when you told me that. Yeah. Like, oh wait, I'm being considered.
Listen, it wasn't my idea. I was actually adamantly
it's funny
against it.
Christine hit me up about it, and I was like, did you clear this with the boss?
I was like, is he actually trailblazing? Like, what
seriously, like, what is he actually doing?
What does that say about the bar now?
Yeah.
I'm kidding. No, we know you know we love you, and like it made sense, and with everything that's happening with Project Feel, there's just a lot of changes happening and a lot of beautiful things, and it'd be fun to talk about that for a bit of time, alongside actually who you are, because we know a lot about Project Feel, and just because if you're watching this, you're most likely a semi-fan, if not a full-on fan. But not many people know about one of the co-founders and currently the CEO of Project Feel, Anthony Alvarez. And yeah, I think your past is pretty interesting. So we're gonna start there for sure.
Cool. Cool.
You grew up a normal kid. You were just living life,
chilling,
and you're like, I'm gonna be a doctor. Was that actually how it happened? No. You're just like,
I honestly, like, growing up as a kid, I never had any image of myself in the future, ever. Like, being in middle school, I never thought like, oh, this is what I want to be. I think the only idea, when I was 6, 7, I had the idea of being a zoologist because I loved animals.
That's sick.
And I remember like I'd have all my stuffed animals. I would literally like go to school and set up my stuffed animals in my room as if it was like a reserve in Africa.
You put them in cages?
No, it was actually beautiful. Like my bed was the island. There was like a river here. Like, and I would leave them and I'd come back. I remember the elephant's name was Trouble, and I'd come back and open the door like, oh, Trouble's still in the same place I left them. But that was the only idea that I had of like, oh, maybe I could do this. But like I was really young. But all through middle school, high school, I never really had an idea. I couldn't view a future version of myself and what that looked like. And at the end of high school, like up until senior year, I was like, I still don't know what I want to do. And I never had any sort of passion in my life. There were things I cared about, but I never had anything that I was like, I played basketball, but like I'm not going to the NBA. So I was like, I gave up on that dream pretty quick. And so in my senior year, I remember like, I think I'll just be a physician's assistant, which is like in the healthcare field, which is what my older brother did. Yeah. And I was like, I guess I'll just do that. They seem to be having a nice life. And my mom was like, no, if you're going to go to healthcare, you're going to strive to be a doctor. Like at least apply to these med schools, right? Wow. And I'm like, I mean, I like science. I'm good at science. So I'll do that. And I applied and I got into a program that was like, it was a combined BSMD program. So it's not like you go to pre-med and then you apply for med school. It's like you get straight into a program that takes you all the way through. It's like a 7-year program. Jeez. And so when I got into it, I was like, I guess I'll do this. It's like seemed everyone's happy about me being a doctor. So I'm like, I'll follow this path. But even when I was in medical school, I couldn't imagine myself being a doctor. Not because I wasn't good at it or I didn't like what I was doing. Like I enjoyed what I was doing and I was actually really good in school. I would literally close my eyes and like, I can't see myself as a 35-year-old person in a white coat walking around these hospitals or these clinics. Like, why is it so hard for me to envision that? And that to me was always like a sign that like, maybe this isn't for me. Yeah. I remember like in my 3rd year, we played like a game with some of my classmates, and it was like some question came up, and the question was like, who in this group do you think would be most likely to not do this that they're doing now, or like to pivot? And everyone was like, oh, I don't think you're gonna be a doctor. Not because you're not good at it, because I was like actually near the top of my class, but just like you're always talking about doing other things, and it just seems like you're being called to something else that isn't here. And then honestly, that ended up being like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because I ended up leaving after like 3 years. 3 years into the program, I took a year off and I just never went back from there. Yeah. But I digress. The point is, I never was like, I'm going to be a doctor my whole life. It just sort of opened up and I was like, I guess I'll walk down this path for a bit. And I just changed paths at some point.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
Sorry, mom and dad.
Because it's so that's so interesting, because thinking about my past and what how I felt in high school is very similar. I remember my thing, because yours was the zoologist.
Mm-hmm.
My thing was like, and I was there's gonna be a question after this, but my thing was I went to Lockheed Martin one time. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I think maybe have you spoken about this in a previous episode with
maybe
someone?
I might have.
Yeah.
And
what age were you when you went?
I was in like 6th grade, I think.
So pretty like
yeah, it was
pretty
like,
like malleable age though.
Oh
like,
yeah, for sure.
You're pretty okay.
So I went and there was just a bunch of cool technology. Mind you, this is like probably like 2000. No, sooner, 2007, 2008 maybe. I think I can't do math. So much for engineering.
Yeah, Florida education let us down.
Hey, listen, that's why I'm not an engineer today. But yeah, I went and there's like VR technology and stuff like that there. Yeah. So they're already like super ahead of the game, and it was like things that they were making for right? There was things that they were making for like it was like military grade technology. So they were like at the forefront of all of the advancements that we kind of see as normal nowadays. And I just remember them talking about the coolest fucking things, like this like suit thing that you put on that has like a VR headset and like a track that you run on. It's like a ball. It's like ball shaped, so you can run inside of it.
That's and like some Ready Player One.
Yeah,
have you seen
exactly.
That movie? Yeah.
It was like a simulator suit in which they would show you, like you would be on the battlefield, and they would. I've said this so many times, but it was the most impressionable. Like it was the thing that left the biggest impression on me. And it's funny. The link is interesting too, because basically like you'd be in the suit and they would also, there's a tube that would go to your nose and they would pump in the smell of a battlefield. So they kind of took that smell, so like
gunpowder, blood. Wow, that's crazy.
The dirt in the air.
This is
like,
what you're watching people training this, or they were like, "Hey kids, which one of y'all want to do this simulator?"
Like it wasn't. I didn't even see it in action. It was just a concept. I think, for the most part. I don't know if it ever actually worked.
Yeah.
But the other concept was that you would get shot and vibrate or whatever. But then the thing that left the biggest impression on me was that there was another tube. Because the technology was so expensive, they didn't want people puking in it. Yeah. And naturally the smells would make you puke, right? So if you ever felt like you're about to puke, they would, there was another tube that would just immediately shoot the smell of peppermint. Because I don't know if you know, but peppermint, the smell kills nausea. Like if you're nauseous and you smell peppermint, you eat gum, gone. Like it will go away.
This is a thing. This is not like
the reason why I left.
No,
the reason why I left an impression on me is because my little brother was always sick, and he was always getting nauseous. Like he had really bad acid reflux.
Yeah.
So he would puke all the time whenever he ate food. Anytime he started to feel nauseous, they would give him a stick of gum, and it would like kill the nausea.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
It was real. It's like a thing.
Damn.
So like that, I think just the link between like my little brother and that was like made it super, like made it a deep impression. And it was just really impressive to see. Like, I was like, this is cool. And I want to make stuff like this.
I mean, that's futurist. Oh, so you were like, I can be an engineer. Or
I thought I wanted to, right? I thought I wanted to. And then, like, eventually, like, I was in algebra and I was like, this is lame. This sucks. I was like, this is what I'm going to be doing all day? Hell no.
I'm not going to lie. I was always good at math. And then when I got into high school and I started, like, I kind of blame it on the professors or the teachers, but I was like, this is not it for me. I know for a fact I'm not doing anything math related. Yeah.
Especially in high school, man. Oh my God, the most boring teachers. I blame it on the way that we were taught too. I mean, it's just so lame.
Our education system in general, I think, is pretty broken.
Nothing was interesting, and it made no sense in the real world. But the Lincoln question was that was there an inciting incident to like you wanting to be a zoologist?
To be a zoologist?
Yeah.
It was so early on in my life that I can't say if there was an inciting incident. But ever since a super young age, I loved animals. Yeah. Like I just always had like, I think we got my first dog I was 6 years old. Maybe it was connected to that period of time actually, now that I think about it. But I can't remember a moment where I was like, oh, this is what put me on this path for a bit. I remember, I mean, I could think later in my life of moments like that, but in terms of zoologists, I feel like my care for animals, or back then when I like that love was so embedded in me at such an early age that like I can't think of that inciting moment. It just sort of is like was there always as early as I can remember.
When did you learn about the word zoologist? Do you remember that?
Really? I think because I asked. I don't know if Google was a thing back then or like it was easy to use like that, but someone taught me about it because I said like I really love animals and what can I do that will allow me to do to work with animals, and like I don't know if someone told me or I looked it up, but they were like, oh, a zoologist works with animals, and I'm like, oh, and I imagined myself like living in Africa and actually working like so on reservations, like being like a support for these animals. And it's funny because I remember being in medical school. I remember one specific day being in medical school, and I'm like, I don't know, this just ain't it for me. Like, what else is there? And I'm in class looking up how to transition from medical school to veterinarian school, actually. And I'm like, it seemed like so much work that I'm like, okay, I don't think I'm doing that either. So
it's also just a doctor, but for animals.
Yeah,
so it feels like it's probably weirder.
Yeah.
Like I just imagine.
It's also like just as much schooling and significantly less pay. And not that that's like a driving factor for me now, but back then I didn't have any sense of mission or purpose within myself. So the only sort of lens that I was kind of using was external factors, like, oh, what should I be doing? What will provide for me? You know what I mean? Not what gives me a sense of purpose and like a reason to be excited to wake up every day, you know? Yeah, that came later on.
Super fascinating.
That came with you guys.
Yeah, true. Yeah, I mean, you know, to that part, like what for the arts specifically, and being a creative, I guess, why was that the first thing that you pivoted to after the whole doctor mishap?
Yeah, I think, well, like I said, I had never touched the camera. Like in high school, I lacked such a confidence within myself that I never put myself in spaces to explore new things. So I didn't, besides basketball for 1 year, I didn't put myself in clubs. I didn't I didn't have like passions for things. Like I couldn't even say that I had friends, but I couldn't really say I had a community. And so I was really, it was like, honestly, it felt like me and, it's crazy to think about this now, but like it felt like me, my brother, and Christine were like this trio. And we were like each other's support systems, but I never had that like external larger support system. Like I hear sometimes people talk about, you know, being in church and having a community there. I've heard you speak about it before. And so I never had anything like that for me. And so with like when I left medical school, I didn't have something like, well, I've always loved this, or I've always really done this already. The only thing that called to me a little bit just because of how much I did it was movies. And that was because my older brother, his name is Richie, also just like one of my, literally my first ever supporter when I left medical school. But I love Richie. Shouts out to Richie and his beautiful family, but they've always supported me and all of us in what we're doing. But he was 10 years older, and so I feel like I was exposed to a lot of movies of all types early on. And I always loved watching movies, and I remember like being in the 6th grade and like being like, it was a big deal because Richie always loved the Rocky series, and then Rocky Balboa came out, which is like years after the older ones. And we were able to we got permission to stay out late to watch, like me and my 2 brothers. And like, oh, you can, it's okay that you're getting home at 1 and you just go to school the next day. And like that was a huge deal for me. And so some of my most like impactful moments in my life, I also remember like being terrified in movies and being like literally not being able to sleep. Like when my parents showed me The Ring, probably a little too young, and they to this day talk about that night how he couldn't sleep. And so Jesus Christ. Like I the only thing that ever elicited really strong emotions out of me were movies, but I didn't know anything about that. So when I took that year off of medical school, I was like, well, I was still taking classes. I was like, finally I can make my own schedule, pick my own courses. So I was like, I'll do an acting class. Like, let me see what that's about. Yeah, I was like, fuck it. And I did it, and I honestly loved it. Like I loved the professor I had. I'm like, this is a whole new world to me, to be able to like elicit emotion out of people, you know? And so and out of yourself, and be able to like explore other lenses of the world that you don't have or that you don't naturally have. And you're able to, you have permission to walk out of your own perspective and explore another. And so I really liked that, but I didn't have any experience in like the arts or anything. So I just remember I was talking to one of my classmates who was still in medical school. He was like, hey, my dorm mate, he is in the film program, so they do like, you know, they shoot like skits every once in a while if you want to learn more about it, literally. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, sure, like I'll do it. And then I remember the working like with this group of students from City College, which is where I was going to school. And I remember like the second day ever that I was on like a set, because remember, it's just like a bunch of college kids. It's just like, yeah. And so that was the day that Frank Ocean's Blonde came out.
Jesus
and I
Christ,
remember we were sitting there and someone was like, yo, the album is out. And we chose randomly to play a song. It was like we had rapped already, and we were all just hanging out, and they're like, let's just listen to one song. And randomly it was Nights chosen. And Nights to me is like one of the most incredible songs ever made, period. And so I remember being there, and we're all listening to this like, wow. And then that beat switch in the middle, and we're all just like, holy shit. And that moment of all of us collectively being like, wow, that was powerful. Like the lines between us blurred, and like we were all feeling this collectively. And if it weren't for that day, us saying like, hey, we're gonna work on this video, on this project, on this skit, we wouldn't have been brought together. So art brought us together, and art continued to bring us closer beyond film. It was just like that, because then it was music at that point. And so for me, during that time, I just kept really seeing examples, and all throughout my life, little by little, but just like how powerful pieces of art can really bring something out of you that you weren't even aware you could feel, and bring people together in ways that you hadn't like experienced before. And that, to me, once I felt that, honestly, it was almost like a drug, where I'm like, I've never had this before, and this is actually crazy to experience, and I just wanted to keep pursuing it and following down that path. So like that, like for me, isn't gonna sound weird, but like it's not so much about the art itself as much as the intention behind the art. Like for me, art in all its forms is a language for us to speak to ourselves and to each other. And so I'm more interested in what it is that we're saying to each other, and how we bring ourselves into the spaces to have those conversations, whether it be digitally or physically, and less about like the act of creating something just to create something. Like the intention to me is really a really like at the core of it for me, in terms of my own like purpose, you know. Did I answer your question, or did I just go on meander?
I mean, I don't remember what the question was, but that was great.
That was sick. I'm sorry.
I mean, hey, I'm listening for a reason. If I was bored, I would have cut you off already.
You would have cut that out.
No, that's really cool. I guess, I don't know if no, we've definitely talked about this before, but I feel like we're so similar in so many ways. Like it's so funny. I feel like we're just so similar, like in how we found this stuff, like, and people know, if you've watched the episodes before, like, you know how I found art and everything, and it's so similar. It's just so,
no, I feel you.
It makes a lot of sense why we connected, and why we go for it in the same way.
No, I feel you. There's in one of the interviews that we, like when we interviewed you after the In Your Element documentary, and we asked you, I forgot exactly what the question is, but you spoke about how you didn't discover theater till like late in your life, and you were like, this has been around the whole time, and and then you said, how many other people don't know about this? And you've spoken about wanting to go back to Orlando and, you know, inviting those other kids that had otherwise wouldn't have an introduction to it. Like, you care about, it wasn't just you felt something like, this is awesome, I want to do this, but you were like, I care about others having this opportunity as well. And for me, when I heard that in your interview, I was like, that really does explain why we've like really come together, and why we're both so like focused and committed, because it is, at the end of the day, bigger than the both of us. It is like about something that we are trying to do because we believe in it. And I do agree with you. Like, we are very similar in that sense. And I think it's why I feel so like secure building Project Feel with you amongst the rest of the team, because it's just like, I know why you're here and what you're doing it for, and it aligns with me in every way. So
and it feels good. From day one, man, it's always felt good. And everything I feel like everything just fell into place, especially early on within Project Feel, and just with our relationship and stuff, and how interesting the development of that relationship was. Like, It's too much to get into now,
Spicy,
but yeah, it was.
That's for the After Hours podcast.
Yeah, it's for the After Hours. I don't know when a lot of people know, but like it's such a funny. I would love to talk about it one day because it's a really great. We won't get into it. You know, you don't know.
I'll stop. I won't say anything.
It's a really great lesson and a really great example of how you treat people that you love and how to respect people. I
appreciate
something that is very, very rare and unexpected, and really threw me for a loop. And I was so shocked about how everything went down, but it kept me so like, it made sense, and like there was a different level of trust when all that happened. But anyway, yeah. So like,
one day we'll talk about it, fans.
So being a creative is something that came to me at a very specific time in my life, and it was similar in the sense that like I didn't see myself doing anything. Military was the only thing that I ended up
that's wild to me
walking towards, because it was the only thing that was readily available and that was so easy to do. Like I didn't have to do anything really. I just like had to be physically fit, and I didn't have anything holding me back from that.
And they make it so enticing. Like they pay for your college.
Yeah,
like,
it's
all
so
these
interesting
things,
the way that they sell it to you as well.
Yeah.
And it to be fair, like it wouldn't have been like the worst career path if I didn't end up finding anything.
Yeah.
Because I probably would have been able to make something of myself, whether it was in the military or not. Like there's different paths for everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But being a creative was something that kind of came out of nowhere, and it seems like it was similar for you, where it's just like I didn't even know I could be creative in any kind of way and have it be like received well. So I guess, what does it mean to you to be a creative? Like pretty plainly, but like, what is that? What's the significance of that? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I appreciate you asking that. I feel like, well, one, I don't know if you know, but I don't love using the word artist. I very intentionally use the word creative over artist.
Okay.
And my reasoning for that, not that I have an issue with people using the word, but the reason why I prefer to use creative over artist is that I think in this world, I've spoken to a lot of people close to me, and then people that I've just met when I dive deep into, when I'm talking to them and I'm asking them about what they do and what they're passionate about, who will make things, will make pieces of art, but will be very hesitant to call themselves an artist because for reasons like, well, I'm not doing this full time, or I'm not getting paid for this yet. So, you know, as of now, I'm just working in an office, you know, but I do this on the side. And I think that there's something about the word artist that sort of already has definitions and like
a box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I think that it could be a little exclusive sometimes for people that are, in my opinion, creating things in the same way that what someone who's an artist would call it, like in that same way. I remember when I left med school, before I started Project Field, I was like in a limbo period. I was working in a doggy daycare once, and I remember walking some dogs around this block, and there was a book on the floor, and I'm like, oh, this is cool, I'll just take it. And the book, there were two books, but one of them was this book called Creative Confidence. And I was interested in the arts, but I still really didn't even imagine like what I wanted to do. When I first started Project Field at the age of like 22, I thought it was going to be something I did when I was 35. I was like, oh, when I'm able to get enough money and I'm good, like I'll start Project Field. And in that book, it talks about how you aren't like, creativity isn't a natural, like, it's not that you are creative or you're not creative. Everyone is creative. It's a mindset that you put yourself into and that you actively like practice and participate in. And so for me, when I really started feeling that, and I look around the world, I'm like, everyone is a creative, everyone is creating something, whether you are like a painter creating a painting, or you are a teacher creating a space for others to learn from each other and from you, or you are a janitor and you're creating a space that is cleanly and is like allowing people to feel comfortable there and for them to learn. Like, everyone is doing something, creating something for themselves or for the people around them. And that to me is like, oh, well, then everyone's a creative in that sense. And that's like a big thing that I care about promoting, is that idea, like, artistry and creativity isn't something that's that's reserved for certain people to do. It's something that we all actively do. And I want us to be aware that we all actively do that, because we're all able to connect once we're aware. Like, we're all creating something with each other. Like, the human race and everything our society is a collective project that we've been working on for thousands of years with each other. And so to answer your question, like, what does it mean to be an artist or creative for me? It's like, it means to be human, like, in very, very simply put. And I want more people to appreciate the creative parts of themselves, because that's something that is present in all people. And if you can appreciate that in yourself, then that means you're one step closer to appreciating it in others. Yeah. And that creates a sense of like, I see you, I feel you. And that's a bridge that we create with each other. And so that's what is important to me. So, and then how I view it. Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes total sense. There's a second part to that question, which is talking about like how you feel society categorizes creatives in general. And I mean, you pretty much answered it just with the idea of what an artist is. Yeah, it's funny. It's like we do, I will say that we do gatekeep words for reasons. Like, you can't, there are certain things where you can't just be that thing without earning that thing, right? So like, an example would be like a doctor, right? You can't really be a doctor until you earn that degree and it's like certified. And that's just a measure that we have in place to protect people. Yeah. So that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
so
that
like,
makes perfect sense.
It's just a little more amorphous when you're a creative or an artist. It's there's definitely value in it, because there's still a reason to protect people when it comes to calling yourself an artist or calling yourself a director or calling yourself an expert in blah, right? Yeah. There's still there's a lot of weight. There should be weight to those things. Yeah. And it's important that you earn some of those titles. Yeah. But I do agree that creative is a really good one that invites you. Like, it doesn't prevent you from, because like if you're a director but you haven't like directed a film that's made you money, or like you haven't gotten
an Oscar
or gotten hired to be a director, so like you can still call yourself a director. There are just other things that you need to still learn before you are considered a director, right? So creative sense. I feel it's like, well, you don't need anything to be a creative. You can just be a creative.
I mean, literally
you are a creative.
It's also one, I like the idea of those creative and it being used as a noun versus an adjective. It kind of like going back and forth, because I think that actually is pretty reflective of how it is in reality. But if you're around kids, you're like, oh, all y'all are creative. Like, if you're in a kindergarten class, which I have been, like, I worked in education for like 3 years. For like a period of time, I was always like involved in some form of education.
Literally, me too.
Yeah, and that when you're around, twins.
All right.
But copycat. But when you're around them, you're like, oh no, like, we as human beings are really naturally creative. Like, you'll see them come up with stories. You'll see them play with things in a way. You'll see them come up with like, like just way, even how they speak with each other. One of my favorite things about kids is they never walk in one. If you say go from here to there to an adult, they'll walk at the same pace straight. A kid will like slowly walk and then all of a sudden sprint and then stop and then like do a circle and then like
and climb over the nearest object to climb
literally
on, climb over it.
They won't go straight from A to B. They will create their own path, and that to me is why I'm like, everyone's a creative. But you're right about the sort of like, there should be some barrier in terms of how we address ourselves for safety. Like you said, like if anyone called themselves a doctor, like there'd be some big mishaps there.
Yeah, for sure.
But in regards to embracing your own creativity, I'm like, that's the one thing that I'm okay not having a high barrier of entry, is if we can all accept that a little earlier on.
For sure. It's really interesting about the kids thing too, because at Fifth Avenue, do they have those like blocks in the form? Those like cubes or whatever? Bro, it's got to be studied. I don't know. There's definitely like a case out there where they studied why this happens, but I think it has to do with like our structure and the way that we teach kids to do things. or like the games that they play. I don't know. It's weird, but every time a kid goes into that freaking area, so like it's scattered, right? The set expectation is that they're just like blocks that they're not in line, they're not lined up or whatever.
Yeah. Also, just for the viewers that don't know the context, we're talking about Apple stores.
Yeah, and there's like these cubes that you can sit on that are a seating area where it's like for the creative. It's the creative area where they do creative stuff.
Yeah.
Every time a kid interacts with that area, they immediately like take all the cubes and they put them in a line. They always put them in a line, and they'll like they'll put the things on top, right? And then they'll like, there's these things inside so you can hollow it out. So it's like they like always empty them out, and they always go through
through it. Yeah.
They every time they find a way to make it that structure without fail. Every single kid, without any inciting incident, just
no prompt,
always does that.
Yeah,
it's really, I don't know if it's like, I guess you see the chaos, right? You see the area, and you immediately want to like mold it and like change it to where you want it, where you like it.
I mean, that's something
really interesting.
That's something that, like, for me, as like I've read up a lot on like human evolution, and like our pattern recognition
is huge,
is like crazy, and that's like what's helped us so much as a species.
Also hurt us a lot.
I mean, I can get deep into that, but in that case, when you see it in kids, it's like they see something that they can rearrange it in their own mind and then execute on that idea and create something, like literally create that tunnel. And so the fact that you can probably take a kid from any socioeconomic background, any class, any gender, and put them in that same situation, and they will all within the chaos create something and find that pattern, like that, to me, like that goes beyond any sort of like, it goes beyond our class, gender, cultural backgrounds. Like, it's just inherently how we are as humans, and that to me is fire.
It's really interesting, because like oftentimes I feel like there's a lot of factors and in life that you have to be aware of, and it feels like overwhelming sometimes, but really it's about having like the context of everything and being able to build from that. And that's how you become a sexy entrepreneur.
Yes.
That's how you become a successful entrepreneur, or you become a success. I keep wanting to say
you like it, roll with it.
Or become a successful creative in your field. Is that like the blocks in that scenario are the context and all the pieces of society, or all the pieces of your culture, or all the pieces of your brain that make sense, or are all chaos but like organized in a specific way. They're all little cubes, and if you can remove yourself and look at the bigger picture in terms of the context, that gives you the ability to build and to structure and to like create beautiful things out of the organized chaos, and then you can like make it messy again and like fix it again, right? And that gives you new opportunities to do things in a different way. And I feel like, going into this, like, I feel like when you first rearranged everything, I feel like one of the first things that came to fruition was Project Feel, and what that meant to you and how you built it from where you were alongside the people that were with you at the time. So I guess if you don't mind just talking a little bit about the genesis of that and why it became something important that you wanted to like pursue.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, honestly, like the analogy you just used of like taking the different puzzle pieces and how you put them together, and that actually is exactly what it is. I mean, I literally, so the moment that I thought of the concept of what Project Feel could be, or more so the potential, was I was in my gap year, like my year off of med school, but still taking courses, and I was in the gym, and I had just come out of a class about it was a narrative medicine class.
Interesting.
And
what does that mean?
Like literally, like how, because in medicine, like you'll learn about symptoms, you'll learn about like this is a cause of disease, this is how you treat disease, but you don't necessarily hear about how, for example, marginalized people, how certain groups of people will deal with certain illnesses more, and it's not just because they're predisposed to it, but it's environmental factors. Where like
diabetes.
Yeah, exactly. How like if you're a person of color, and you know you're in a certain type of zip code, there's a higher chance you're going to develop heart disease really because you don't have. Yeah, really. I mean, I forgot where I was reading it, but like your zip code can, to a very eerie,
direct line,
like extent, predict what your outcome in life is going to be. And so point is, so narrative medicine uses the stories of people to create a context around the data that you're getting. Really like cool. It's not just X amount of people get diabetes. It's an individual. It's using more of an individual lens, but it also creates more of a human lens around it.
Yeah. That's really
and so cool. I remember we were talking about the opioid epidemic, and I remember thinking I was thinking about that. I'm like, how do we address this? Because there's there's big pharma, and then there's overprescription of opioids, and at the same time I've always been a huge fan of rap and hip hop, and I'm like one of my favorite rappers is Future, and I hear him all the time talking about drinking lean, which is technically in that class, and I'm like so I am wanting to address an issue and think about how we can solve a crisis in our society, but at the same time there's these other things that are kind of not creating that space for it to continue existing, but complacent with it. You know what I mean? And so
I would also argue creating that space.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I would say that there's a lot of power in art, and so
for sure
there is power in telling kids, hey, I'm drinking lean all the time. So, but the point is, I was okay. So then it's not just political; it's also the businesses making money, but at the same time, it's also creative because there's art that still supports it. There's so many different heads to I literally imagined I think it's a hydra, the term, a mythical beast with multiple heads. I imagined every issue in our society is like that. Every issue has multiple heads of it's not just the economic standpoint, but it's also the social aspect, it's also the cultural aspect, the art, creative aspect, all these things. And I thought to myself, how, if at all, could we address all these things? And not just cut off one head and leave the other ones, but how do we address every head of these beasts at the same time? And for me, it just art kind of came to mind while I was thinking about it, because I'm well, you can make one movie and that movie can screen all over the world. You can make one song and that song could be streamed in dozens, if not hundreds of countries around the world, depending how big it gets. In our world, the potential and capacity for art to really spread is huge. And that to me means that means that out of all the forms of languages we have, tools of communication, art is one of the one of the ways that it can really seep into all these different, spheres of influence. And I feel if the issues we need to address as a species, not just at that point it was opioid epidemic, but it's everything from climate change to racism to economic insecurity in the world, these are all multi-headed beasts. And so for me, it just seemed using art, something that can be understood beyond language and beyond boundaries, as a way of being able to look at these issues and to break them down and hopefully provide some insight on how we can address them. That seemed I saw the most hope in that.
Yeah.
Because I remember in school learning about the difference between upstream and downstream problems, which was in that narrative medicine class, which is if you're to say quickly, if you're chilling at a river, right, and you see a baby float down the river, your first instinct is gonna be I'm gonna go in that river and get that baby, and then you get that baby, and then another one floats down the river, and then another one floats down the river, and you're gonna scramble to get every baby. And at some point, there's so many babies, I can't even get all these babies. But you're still going to try. You're still going to try to save everyone. But that's the value in us working as a society with each other, because the same way that there are people there on the ground helping the babies that are in the river, there need to be people also asking the questions, who
the fuck
is putting these babies in the goddamn river? Yeah, where are they coming from? Literally. And so that's when I learned the difference between upstream problems and downstream problems. And I realized that I don't know what exactly I wanted to do in my life, but I wanted to address the upstream problems. Not that there isn't a value in addressing the downstream, because we can't just forget the people now, but I wanted to get at where are these issues coming from and why are they so deeply embedded and rooted in our society, and can we do anything about them? And I just felt like out of all the ways to address that, art in all its forms are we're capable of doing that. And so even like a painting, like a painting doesn't require language for you to feel something from it. And so I was just like, I don't know, I'll put my chips on art and creativity and using that to address these bigger issues. And so that's where it came from. But I thought it was so ambitious that I'm like, yeah, when I have economic comfort and security, I can do this when 13 years from now. But
it's really that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I didn't know if it was actually that practical. I didn't know it was that like, oh yeah, that's.
I'm happy you feel that.
It was a little more like creative and like, yeah.
I imagine like you were like, oh, actually, that doesn't seem
to be my dream.
All. Yeah, like I'm leaving Project Feel. Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool, and that makes so much sense. I align with that so heavily.
I know, that's why we're besties.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't like. I have no confusion on that topic. That's cool. So Project Feel suddenly came into the world. You guys started as like an events company, basically, right? You wanted to do like creative events for the most part, or film.
Well, it started like when Rare, my co-founder, and I started it. We both were passionate about film. Yeah. No experience at all. We just like, even the word passionate, like depending who you ask, is like, well, are you passionate if you're not out here doing it yet? Yeah. But the point is, like, we knew we wanted to use that. But we all, beyond that we knew we wanted to bring people together. That was always like the goal, because once again, it's the value. Like, what can we do together once we're all together? Once art brings us together, now what? And so the most tangible way that we imagined doing that was like, well, we know a bunch of cool artists because we have been taking some time to just explore the different creative worlds in New York City, in the creative underground. And we're like, let's throw an event where we bring all these together. And so it did start with like events. As like our first ever launch was an event. And actually one of the first things I ever shot like and edited was a promo for that event, actually.
Yeah, was it the first video that had Project Fails on its page? Like
yes,
on YouTube?
Actually. Yeah. I don't know if it's on our YouTube, but I know it was on the Instagram. It was a video that we shot with their name at the time with the Spirit of Sam. To like honestly, like two artists that, to this day, I view them as like kind of angels in a sense, because I met them early on after I left med school, and they showed me what creativity and support and community looked like through the collective they had. That it was called The People. That's also where like Buddha, aka Knowledge, where we met Keon, all these incredible people, super talented. Some of our
favorites,
literally, like Project Feel Hall of Fame OGs, and if it weren't for that group of people and that group of creatives doing what they were doing, I would never have. That was the first time I saw proof that creativity can bring people together in the world. Because it's one thing to just have the idea by myself. It's another thing to be like, oh no, it works. And so shouts out to that people, to that group, to the group called The People. But essentially, they were
started getting to know
we started getting to know them, right? And so a lot of them were a part of that first ever event. And then from there it was really like just feeling like the universe, like dominoes falling onto each other. And and just, I mean, even how we met you, like it felt that way. So
pretty wild.
Yeah, it is pretty wild.
It's pretty cool.
It's why I believe in something bigger. Like I don't view any of all those things like, oh, it's all pure chance and randomness. Like I'm not claiming to know what the bigger thing is and fully understand it, but I feel comfort knowing that I'm like, I think something's got us. And so
for sure. Oh man, it's all so good. Sorry, by the way, to the audience, I don't know if you noticed at this point. Sorry if I'm yawning a little bit. Okay.
He just can't. He had a full day at work. He's a hardworking.
Full day at work. Before work, I don't know if you guys noticed already, but Anthony has a little something on his eye. So the story behind that is, we had to get him on the show, right? And he didn't want to be on the show, right? Because he's a shy boy. You know what I'm saying?
I am a very shy boy.
So I said, if I beat you in a fight, that you have to be on the podcast. Obviously, I won.
And I asked him too, am I fighting Hector Sanchez or am I fighting Eddie Wise? And he was like, oh, you're fighting Eddie Wise.
Yeah.
Fuck. And
Hector has no shot. Eddie's
a dangerous man.
He's possessed.
So tie-dye.
So now he's on the podcast, and that's why I'm a little tired, because I had to fight in the morning. Really important fight.
I didn't make it easy.
Yeah, video coming soon on that. And then I had like a full work day, but no excuses. I'm here. and I'm listening and I'm attentive and I love what you're saying.
I mean, you're one of the hardest. Honestly, though, you're one of the hardest working people I've
I
ever
can't
met
even
in my
listen.
life.
I can't even claim that. Okay,
I can claim it for you.
You and Christine are hands down the hardest working people I've ever met.
She's
Hands down.
for
Okay.
sure.
Well, also my dad and my mom.
Yeah,
which is
I think that's where you get it from too. Your parents.
Listen. I'm not even. I don't want to put up the guys. All right. I can do things well and I can work hard, but I will be honest with you guys. Okay. I'm not genuinely the hardest worker. I have moments where I am incredibly lazy. I'm just gonna say it. I'm not as productive as you might think. Okay?
Well, I'll say this. That sounds to me like you can be a smarter worker. Like I feel like a lot of people.
Yeah, probably.
Like they're the difference between motion and movement. And
For sure.
I feel like
yeah.
you, like every time I'm needed, I know that I can rely on you. Period. Like I don't care if you take 3 days to not do anything. I know like when you need to be there, you're gonna be there. Like so, I'm like, all right, that's all that matters to me.
Until that one time that I was late to that one meeting.
One time, yeah, no, it's okay though. Oof. You honestly work so hard and like are such a huge support to me that you got some space.
A little bit,
just a
little bit of leeway. It's okay. But no, I just honestly the opportunity. Recently, one thing that I want to talk about before we go towards the end, you actually went. I don't know if people know this or can tell. You went full-time Project Feel.
Yes, I did.
Last year.
Yeah, it was in May, I believe.
Which is such a cool thing. I mean, I'm
Thank
sure
you,
it's
bro.
like probably the most stressful thing ever. But
I'll tell you what, it's definitely like it's when I thought my birthday just passed and when I thought about what I'm grateful for from the past year, the first thing is that I get to do this full time.
Yeah.
But what's beautiful about it is that I feel like it is both a privilege and a responsibility to be able to pursue what we're doing full time. Like some people, I was talking to someone the other day and like, it must be so cool to make your own schedule. And the way that they said it was like, you could do whatever you want. And I'm like, I guess I could do whatever I want, but I feel a responsibility to my team, to myself, and to the people that I'm trying to impact to hold myself accountable to what I'm doing, and that's not easy. Like it was actually easier when I was when I was working my 9 to 5 and be like, okay, like, I'll work, I get home and I have 3 hours before I got to go to sleep, before I got to wake up. Like, whatever I can do in 3 hours, I'll do in 3 hours.
Solid money.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm chilling. I'm chilling. And so now it does feel like a responsibility in a good way. Like I love it's. Sometimes I feel like when I speak to people about it, there's like this subliminal feeling of like, that like, why are you working so hard?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm not saying people have ever said that. Actually, no. Some people have directly said it to me. And some people I get it indirectly from. But my response to that, to them or internally, is like, I really believe in what I'm doing. Yeah. And I enjoy what I'm doing. And like, I'm only here for a certain amount of time and I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So while I'm here, I want to make sure that I'm like using my time mindfully and intentionally to better my own life and the lives of the people around me. Yeah. And those lives are connected to other lives. And I realized like, I'm actually a part of something called the human race. And so I do want to have some impact in my time that I'm here. I'm not trying to save everything, everyone, but I want to at least know that I was trying my best to leave something something positive in the world. Yeah. And so, but then the other side of that too, about going full time is the awareness of how incredibly blessed and privileged I am to be able to do this, like to have been able to work at a job that allowed me to amass like resources and like savings for me to like take a leap of faith, to have been able to have been raised by 2 incredibly hardworking parents that are supportive of me in what I'm doing. And if it weren't for every single thing that came into my life, every single thing in person before I decided to go full time, I may never have had the opportunity or the courage to make that decision. And so now that I'm here, I don't slack because I'm like, it's not just about me. It's like my parents came to this country because they wanted a better lives for my brothers and I. So who am I to slack when they put in that work? Like how does that, what is that saying of how I appreciate the work that they put in when I don't hold myself accountable? So yeah, it is me going full time with Project Feel is one of the most beautiful privileges that I've had the opportunity to appreciate.
Yeah.
And it's also an incredible reminder that there's a reason why I feel called to do this, and all I can do is just commit myself to it. And I'm fortunate enough to have a team, people including yourself, that make this journey like beautiful for me and make it worth it. We're like, bro, I'll give up the sleep. Like I'll put in the work just because I really believe in what we're all doing and the feeling that we create with each other. No pun intended. And so
so good, so cool. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, and
I hope so.
It's the biggest, one of the biggest misconceptions, and also just such a pitfall. And I don't know why people do this themselves, but everything that they do is they do it under the assumption that it's gonna be easier than what they're doing now. And if you live your life like that, you're just never gonna you're always gonna be falling down to the next thing. You're never gonna be excelling in something. You're never gonna be genuinely getting to the place where you feel just where you feel challenged, I guess. I don't know. It's just it's like, oh, I'm leaving this job because it's really hard, and I feel like if I go to this other job, it's gonna be easier. Yeah. I feel like if I have T-Mobile, and I feel like if I just pay more and go to Verizon, all my problems are gonna go away. Yeah. I feel like if I just have a really big house, I'm gonna be so happy. Like, everything is just to make life easier, and all you're doing is making life it's just different. Yeah. It's just different. That's all it is at the end of the day.
I saw someone shared something today. I don't know why I feel like it may have been you on Twitter or something, but I don't think so. But it was something along the lines of if my bad, you might have to cut here because they're walking down, distracting me.
Recollect. I don't give a fuck. That's cool.
But
people are walking in the house right now.
Yeah. I'm scared.
We have friends.
The sounds are distracting me. Yeah. We have friends. No, it was something along the lines of, fuck, bro, you're really gonna have to cut this out.
Recollect. I'm not gonna cut it out. Recollect.
I'm sweating. Well, either way, the point that I'm making is this, that I agree with you 100% what you said, and I feel like a lot of the decisions that people make are to increase the comfort in their lives, and I think that in a world that can be so difficult, I completely understand and empathize, especially when some people I was raised by both of my parents. Thankfully they were working hard in a way that even when we weren't super I never felt like I didn't have a sense of security around me because of the love and support my parents put into my life. But I'm aware that not everyone had that. Yeah. And so when I think about how people sometimes make decisions out of comfort, I understand that, because some people have had it so hard that it's like, I just don't want to have to work so hard my whole life. I just want to rest. And I think as humans, we're entitled to that. And the reason why I am so inclined to push myself, and honestly, the people around me, including you and the whole team, is because we are privileged to be able to do what we do, and to be able to build our lives around the things that we create. And not everyone in the world has that privilege. And going back to the sense of responsibility, I kind of view it as we have a sense of responsibility for those kids that could never even imagine a world where they can rest, or they can't even imagine a world where being a painter can be what it is that allows them to live off of their life. My mom and dad would tell me about growing up in Colombia, and the realm of feasibility and possibility for them is not even close to what we have now. Yeah. And I know your parent, we've had conversations. I know that your parents could relate to that. And I think that where we are now, regardless of how much our struggles are, we are quite privileged. And I think that comes with a sense of responsibility, and that means putting yourself in a position that isn't always comfortable, because some people didn't have the option to be comfortable. Some people, it was die, do or die. Yeah. And so if that discomfort, which always leads to growth, if you're telling me that that's the price to be able to do things that can positively impact myself in the long run and the people around me, then I'm then maybe the easy decision isn't actually the right decision in this case. And so I feel you 100% on that. Yeah.
And not to gender this too much, but I feel like
he's about to
a lot of a lot of conversations online and things that people talk about being like a man, you know what I'm saying? Being what it means to be a man,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
And just thinking about
the
that
gender roles.
It's like that's at the end of the day, that's what it is. And now we're privileged enough to say as well, with the way we develop as a society, is that what it means to be like a responsible human, like that's what it means to be a good human being.
I love that.
And someone who is meant to be a leader. So yeah, I totally align with that, and I'm excited to see all my other fellow human beings aspire to that, because I feel like that's what we're here for, is to do it and then show people how to do it. And that's I'm excited to start showing people.
Yeah, bro, we're doing it. And everyone's trying their best. That's another thing too. Like, depending on who you had around you, what you were able to learn, the resources you had, like everyone's best looks different. But that's one thing that when I get frustrated with the world, I tell myself that. I'm not saying it's true, but it does allow me to have more empathy, which is like, everyone really is trying the best with what they have. Like, just because I don't like it doesn't mean that they're not, putting their all into it. And so
yeah, for sure,
it allows you to have some, at least for me, have some understanding. Okay. I'm disgustingly optimistic, as I like to say. Like, it's a little annoying, but something's got to keep me going.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, what else is there?
Yeah. Great,
awesome. Well, after all that, after all those words and things said, and yeah, it's honor and a privilege to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
To end things off, all right? How we always do it on the show. If you haven't seen an episode before, and it's your first episode, shame on you. Go watch more.
But also welcome.
Or welcome, yeah. Unless you're my friend, and then why is this the first episode you're watching?
Yeah, seriously, where have you been?
Have you ever gotten to the end before? Yo, if I know you and you have my number, text. If I'm not gonna shame you
I'll shame you.
You wouldn't know anyway, so it's not like I'm gonna. If you got to the end and you're my friend and you have my phone number, text me that you got to the end. Tell me that you did. I want to see. Real one. Yeah, I want to see. Wow, I just want to. I'm curious, because I don't think many people get to the end, which is fine. Hey, it's a long
cool,
show.
But at least like.
Listen, that's all.
I like that.
But yeah, anyway, I appreciate you guys for watching. To end us off, Anthony Alvarez. One, go ahead and end us off with some words. How can we support you first? That's the first one. How can we support you in any way, whatever you're doing, whatever you got going on? If you have any solo creative projects that you got going on, I'm just saying. I don't know if you have anything you're working on, but it'd be cool to know. And then also some words of wisdom that you want to leave with us. Also, before that, what's your middle name?
Eduardo.
It's so funny.
Anthony
I just wanted to put that out there. I just wanted to put that out there because for those of you who don't know, I'm Eddie Wise because my dad's nickname was Eddie. For some fucking reason, nobody knows. Now I know.
Oh, it's not his actual name.
No, it's not his name at all. It's his nickname. He has there's no association with I don't know where Eddie came from. I have no idea. I'm so excited to meet your day.
Like, I've met your family kind of, but I'm so excited to meet your family.
Yeah,
it's
for real.
Sit down with them, yeah.
And then I just wanted to mention that because it's a fun fact, because Eduardo, Eddie, I don't know, it kind of makes sense.
Bro, we're
I don't know what the fuck. hey, I'm not gonna question it. But yeah, go ahead and.
So the first thing is how people can support.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like, there's like support project feel, like if something that we're creating resonates with you, like sharing it or sending it to someone that you think could hear it or should hear it, there's like a lot of value in that, and that really goes a long way. But honestly, like, it's my initial reaction to that question isn't even how to support me, but like be more mindful of supporting, period. Like, of being able to not just see someone doing something that you applaud or that you resonate with, but letting them know, it's small. Like, the smallest comment can change someone's trajectory of their entire day
or message
or how they're feeling. Yeah, exactly. And so if you see someone that is dressed in a cool way, like, and you appreciate it, like, let them know, like, they may not feel that way. They may feel like garbage that day. if you hear something, or if you're like following an artist on Instagram or TikTok and you really like their music, like let them know. Like, let them know that what they're doing is having an impact somewhere outside of their own bedroom. Because I think in this digital world, like you can have so many followers and all these things, but like you don't necessarily know how what you're doing is impacting the real world. And so in whether it's on social media platforms or when you're around people, but like if you be a little bit more proactive or vocal with supporting, like you don't even have to do one specific thing to support. So that's that response to that. You said the other one is current projects.
No, that was current projects.
Yeah.
And then the other one's words of wisdom.
Oh, damn.
I was kind of words of wisdom.
I don't know if the camera notices, but I've been picking up 2 separate drinks. I'm not going to tell you what's in them, but there are 2 glasses that I've been drinking from. I'll just say that. Know. Yeah, we'll just say it's for the after hours. But
it's not lean.
Yeah, it's not lean. No, never that. But well, one thing I will say that we recently released the In Your Element documentary with our family at Element, which is an incredible like global music networking platform. And we hosted a songwriting camp with them where we invited 20 artists. Most of them were strangers to Safe and Sound Studios in Brooklyn, which is like also family for us as well, in terms of the Rec Room family. And we made a whole documentary around that. So I had the beautiful privilege of being able to direct and edit that. And that came out a couple weeks ago. And I will say, if you are a fan of music, if you are a believer in what can happen when beautiful people come together, or when people come together with aligned intentions, what can come from that, watch this, because I think that it will speak to you, or at least I'm hoping that it will.
Keep that.
Yeah, in regards to solo projects, like bro, everything I'm doing is like project feel to the death of me. Like,
true. That's fair. That's fair.
So anything I would do solo, I'm like, well, how can we do it all together?
Yeah, one day in the future.
One day, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, the next solo project would be a horror film that I'm thinking about, coming from a very, very traumatic relationship I was in. But yeah, which we'll go into that in the after hours now.
Bro, this after hours is notorious.
Yeah, literally.
People are gonna be crying for this after hours podcast. I can't wait.
Very easily. Words of wisdom. This is a little tough for me, I guess, because I feel like, who am I to tell people words of wisdom? But if I had to think of something, it probably would be, whether it's therapy or whether it's a form of exercise or whether it's meditation or whether it's your creativity, find those ways or those practices that allow you to sit with yourself and your own feelings, especially when they're uncomfortable. Because I think, and especially if you're creative, and the reason I say so is because if you're able to sit with your own discomfort, your own feelings, and you're able to observe it without tucking it away, without judging it, that for me allows you to be able to explore more ideas, more concepts, more feelings, more lenses to look at the world. And that adds to one's ability to be creative, because now you're capable of being able to hold more inside of you and transmute that into the world. And so my words of wisdom would be for any person. Well, like I said, everyone's a creative in my mind. So for everyone, like, find the ways that you can allow yourself to sit with those things that for the most part you're like, I don't want to think about that, or I don't want to deal with that. And it could be a lot of different things. It doesn't have to be one way, but find your way to do it, and allow that to be like the scaffolding with which you grow upon. And I think the beautiful things will come from that and come from you. So, yeah.
Sick. Yeah. Great. Well, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, bro. Thank you so much for having me, man.
Yeah, we made it.
We made it. Yeah, I don't know how long that was, but
you still nervous? Or I mean, I felt
no. I'm like sweating a lot because it's warm, but I'm not nervous. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild. Actually, it feels kind of good for me.
Yeah. You're sick with temperature. I don't know. Well, you're a Florida boy, so
anyway. Yeah, I'm pretty warm. Well, yeah. If you did make it to the end, thank you so much for watching, and subscribe to the page.
Please do.
And just watch more episodes. Enjoy everything else that we have to offer here. And yeah, like Anthony said, if you enjoyed it, reach out to us. It really does mean a lot. He's not lying about that. Keeps us afloat, keeps us going, makes us want to do more as well. So it definitely is very helpful. I'm going to bed.
Sweet dreams.
Yeah. Good night, guys.
Good night.
No, I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
Sweet.